My name is Daniel, I'm 34 years old, and I want to tell you a story I haven't shared with anyone except my wife until recently. This is a story about betrayal, 3 years of patience, and the moment I finally got to breathe again. If you think revenge always looks loud and dramatic, broken windows, screaming matches, you're wrong. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is quiet, methodical, and completely legal. Let me start from the beginning. I met Alex when we were 18, in our first year of university. I'd moved from a small town, he was a local, and he was the one who showed me where the cheap cafeteria was, which professors were brutal on exams, and where to go in the evening so I wouldn't starve on a student budget. We clicked fast. Same sense of humor, both into programming, and over 5 years of school we became practically brothers. After graduation, we both went into tech. I got a job as a developer at a small company, Alex landed somewhere else, but we stayed in constant contact, sharing experience, helping each other out. When I was stuck on an algorithm, I called him. When he had a bug he couldn't crack for 3 days, I'd drive over with my laptop, and we'd sit until 3 a.m. until we found the fix. For years after graduation, I had an idea. I was building a small reporting automation tool in my spare time, originally just to make my own job easier. Gradually I realized this thing could be useful to dozens, maybe hundreds of small companies that couldn't afford expensive enterprise software. I started polishing the product every evening after my day job, pouring almost all my free time into it. Once I had a working prototype, of course I had to show my best friend. Who else, if not him? We met at a coffee shop, I demoed it on my laptop, and his eyes lit up. "Daniel, this is genuinely good," he said. "Listen, what if I jumped in? I've got some savings, plus I know people who could help with sales. We could build this together." I thought about it for 2 days. On one hand, going into business with a friend is risky, I'd heard a dozen stories about partnerships destroying friendships. On the other hand, who, if not someone I'd known for 16 years and trusted like myself? I said yes. We made it official, registered an LLC, 50-50 split. I was the technical co-founder, Alex handled sales, marketing, and finances, because that stuff never interested me, and he seemed, at the time, much better suited for it. We both quit our day jobs about 6 months in, once the product started bringing in steady revenue. The first 2 years were both hell and bliss at the same time. I coded 12 to 14 hours a day, shipping features, fixing bugs, handling customer support tickets. Alex went to meetings, closed deals, lined up partnerships. We both genuinely believed we were building something big. And we were. By the end of year 2, we had over 2,000 subscribers on the platform, a stable monthly revenue that let us both live comfortably, and a team of 4 additional employees, 2 developers and 2 support staff. I was happy. I thought I'd found the perfect setup, doing work I loved, with someone I trusted completely. The problems crept in quietly. At first it was small things. Alex started replying to messages less often. The financial reports he used to send me every month, neat, detailed breakdowns, started arriving late, then every 2 or 3 months, then he stopped sending them altogether, just saying, "Everything's fine, don't worry, I've got it handled." I trusted him. That was my biggest mistake, not trusting a friend, but stopping the habit of checking. I was so buried in code, in new features, that the financial side of the business had become a black box that Alex fully controlled. The suspicion started creeping in about 2.5 years after we launched. I noticed Alex buying things that clearly didn't match his usual lifestyle. A new car, a luxury sedan that cost more than our entire combined first-year revenue. Expensive watches. A trip to Dubai with his girlfriend, which he proudly posted about online. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe he had personal savings, took out a loan, whatever. Then came the client incident. One of our bigger clients, a company we'd worked with for almost a year, emailed me directly, not Alex, me, through the support line, asking about contract renewal terms. I told them that was Alex's department, but the client wrote something strange back. "We already paid for the renewal 2 months ago, through Alex, to a separate account, like he asked. Just wanted to confirm the next payment details." A separate account. I didn't know anything about a separate account. I played it cool, thanked the client, said I'd check on it. And then I started digging. I didn't confront Alex right away, and looking back, that was the right call. If I'd blown up in the moment, started screaming, demanding answers, he would have just denied everything, found excuses, and possibly covered his tracks or moved the money even faster. Instead, I started quietly gathering information. I had access to our technical infrastructure, servers, the client database, payment logs from our billing system. I started cross-checking numbers. How many clients did we actually have according to system data, and how many payments were actually going through our official company bank account, the one I could see, and our accountant could see too? The picture that emerged was ugly. Alex had genuinely opened a separate account, a sole proprietorship registered under his mother's name, through which he was collecting a portion of client payments directly, bypassing our company entirely. He told clients it was for tax optimization or a temporary setup while we sort out some legal paperwork. Some clients, especially the bigger ones, were paying there consistently, while only small, one-off payments showed up in our actual system. I spent 3 nights cross-referencing contracts, client correspondence, our LLC's bank statements, and CRM data. The total came out to, over the last year alone, at minimum, around $60,000 had flowed through this scheme, money that should have gone into the company and been split 50-50 between us, per our partnership agreement. Of that, I'd received nothing. When I saw that number, my hands were literally shaking. Not just from anger, from the realization that a person I'd known for 16 years, someone I trusted like a brother, had been methodically scamming me for over a year while I sat coding 14 hours a day, genuinely believing we were building something together. My first instinct was to call him and lose it. Say everything I was thinking, end the partnership on the spot, maybe even throw a punch if we were face to face. That's how furious I was. But I forced myself to stop and think. Because reacting emotionally would have given him exactly what he needed, time to prepare. If I'd just yelled at him and stormed out, he could have hidden or moved whatever money was left. Prepped a version of events for lawyers, rewriting the story to make himself look innocent. Pressured or bribed employees who might testify against him. Simply vanished with what he'd already stolen and gone off to start a new business with someone else. I decided my revenge wouldn't be an emotional explosion, it would be cold, methodical, and total. I made myself a promise, I wouldn't stop until every dollar he'd stolen was returned, and until he faced real consequences, legal, financial, and reputational. It took 3 years. But it worked perfectly. First thing I did was find a good lawyer specializing in corporate disputes and business fraud. I didn't go to a lawyer I already knew, didn't go to anyone Alex might recognize through mutual connections. I found someone through a private referral, someone with zero overlap with our social circle. We met, and I laid out every document I'd collected, bank statements, client correspondence, CRM screenshots, contracts. The lawyer, let's call him Mark, went through everything carefully over the course of a week and said something I'll never forget. You have enough here for a criminal fraud and embezzlement case. But if you want to do this right, quietly, without tipping him off so he can't hide assets, we need to build a much stronger evidence base before we make the first move. I agreed to wait. And we got to work. The next 8 months, I lived a double life. At work, I stayed the same Daniel, quiet, focused developer who codes and doesn't poke around in his partner's financial decisions. I kept hanging out with Alex like normal, we still grabbed lunch, joked around, talked about new features. Inside, I was boiling, but on the outside, I didn't show a hint of suspicion. In parallel, on my lawyer's advice, I started documenting everything. Any conversation where Alex mentioned money came up, I recorded it on my phone. Fortunately, the law allowed for that kind of recording to be used as evidence in a civil case under certain conditions, and the lawyer walked me through exactly how to do it so it would hold up. I asked our company's accountant, someone who handled the official bookkeeping and, as it turned out later, had no idea about Alex's side scheme either, to give me a full breakdown of all transactions through our official account over the past 2 years. In parallel, through a contact who used to work in banking, completely legally, through an official request as a co-owner of the company, I got access to expanded payment data on our clients. The most important step was reconnecting with every client who had ever paid through the separate account. I couldn't ask them directly, that would have raised flags and could have gotten back to Alex too soon. Instead, I ran what I'd call a client experience audit, framed as improving our service. I personally reached out to every major client, asking about their experience, their payments, whether the contract terms were clear. Most clients were happy to share, with no idea they were handing me evidence against my own business partner. One client, the owner of a small logistics company, told me flat out, "Honestly, we're not thrilled about paying through a sole proprietorship instead of your actual company. It's been messing with our bookkeeping. Could we switch back to the normal payment setup?" I noted the conversation and asked him to send written confirmation by email, which he did, never knowing he was creating an official document that would later become part of the evidence file. Over 8 months, I gathered statements from 11 different clients, a full bank statement history, message threads where Alex directly instructed people where to send money, and a financial analysis from an independent forensic accountant that clearly showed the gap between the company's official income and the actual volume of services we were providing. While the legal groundwork was being laid, I understood there was another risk. Alex could decide at any moment to exit the business, sell his stake, or just disappear with whatever money was left, if he sensed something was off. So I built a parallel plan: secure the product, the client base, and the technical infrastructure so that no matter what happened, the business wouldn't collapse or end up in the hands of someone who'd been scamming me. Without breaking any agreements, I gradually started restructuring key parts of the system so the infrastructure would hold up even without my direct involvement, documented all the code, handed off some critical knowledge to a second developer on the team, someone I trusted, who, as it turned out, had also noticed weird things on the financial side but had been too nervous to say anything. I also, again on entirely legal grounds as a co-owner, requested information from the bank on every account opened under our LLC's name, and any powers of attorney that might have been issued on the company's behalf. That's how I found another detail: Alex had set up a forwarding arrangement on part of our corporate email that only he controlled, which explained why I'd never seen some of the bank's fraud flag notifications. Chapter 9: Personal Life Under Pressure. I'll be honest, these months were brutal not just because of the investigation, but because I had to hide all of it from my own wife for the first few months, not wanting to drag her into the stress until I had a solid case built. When I finally told her everything, about 4 months into the investigation, she was shocked, but completely had my back. "I noticed you'd been tense for a while," she said. "I figured it was work stress, coding problems. Turns out it's way worse than that." She became my anchor through that whole period. She's the one who pushed me to slow down, not let emotion take over, and see the plan through methodically, the way I'd originally intended. I also wrestled with a moral dilemma during this time: keep acting normal around Alex, go to events together, wish him happy birthday, smile, all while knowing he was stealing from me and from the company? It was exhausting. But the lawyer explained that any sudden change in my behavior could tip him off, so I learned to play the part for those 8 months. Once the evidence was solid and the lawyer confirmed we had enough for serious legal action, we started working out the strategy for the first move. Going straight to the police was ruled out by the lawyer for tactical reasons. Financial crime cases can drag on for years, and Alex would have had plenty of time to drain remaining assets, sell the car, sell the condo, hide money through third parties. So we chose a combined approach. First, a civil lawsuit with provisional measures. That meant we could file for an asset freeze on Alex's accounts and property at the same time as filing suit, so he physically couldn't move the money while the case was pending. The lawyer prepared everything, and on an ordinary Tuesday, when Alex walked into the office with his morning coffee like always and sat down at his desk, I asked him for a word. "Alex, we need to talk," I said, calm. "Seriously talk." He picked up on something being wrong immediately from my tone. For the first time in 8 months, I wasn't smiling, wasn't being my usual easy self. "What's going on?" he asked, and I watched his face change. I set a folder down in front of him, printed bank statements, message threads, client statements. "I know about the account under your mother's name. I know about the $60,000 you stole from the company over the last year. And I have everything I need to prove it in court." I expected a few different reactions: anger, denial, attempts to spin it. What actually happened surprised even me. Alex went pale, opened the folder, started flipping through the pages, his hands shaking. For a few minutes he just sat there in silence, scanning the documents, clearly grasping how thoroughly I'd prepared. "Daniel, look, I can explain all of this," he started, panic creeping into his voice. "It was temporary, I was planning to pay it all back, I had personal money problems, I just..." 8 months, Alex," I cut him off. 8 months I spent building this case, because I didn't want to act on emotion. I have statements from 11 clients. I have your own messages telling them exactly where to send the money. I have a report from an independent auditor. This isn't a temporary money problem. This is fraud and grand larceny." He tried a few more angles, apologizing, then threatening that he had his own connections and lawyers, then offering to just sort this out quietly, no lawsuits. But I held firm. "You have a choice," I said. "Either we settle this civilly, Right now, you pay back every dollar you stole, with interest, we dissolve the partnership, and I don't file a criminal complaint. Or tomorrow I walk into the police station, and trust me, I'm fully prepared for that path too. The next 3 weeks were tense negotiations through lawyers. Alex tried to find ways to minimize the damage, brought in his own attorney, who attempted to challenge parts of the evidence. But his position was weak, the bank statements and client statements were impossible to dispute, and the messages where he directly told people where to send money killed any chance of a believable denial. We eventually reached an agreement. Alex agreed to repay the company the full amount stolen, around $70,000, once we accounted for additional transactions we'd uncovered during negotiations. Transfer his stake in the company to me for a token amount, effectively giving up the 50% of the business we'd built together. Sign a non-compete agreement, barring him for 5 years from building a similar product or working with any of our existing clients. We finalized everything legally, notarized, through a settlement agreement that spared me a long, drawn-out court process while still making Alex's obligations legally enforceable. Chapter 13, Getting the Money Back. Alex sold the car, the same one he'd bought with stolen money. Sold the watches. Took out a loan. Within 2.5 months, the full amount had been transferred back to the company account. When I saw the confirmation of that final transfer come through on my banking app, I was sitting alone in the office that evening, and honestly, I cried. Not pure joy, more relief. 3.5 years of tension, distrust, secret investigating, and emotional strain were finally over. It's been 2 years now since Alex officially left the company. The business keeps growing. Without a partner who was scamming me, I was able to hire a real CFO, build a transparent reporting system, and over these 2 years the company has roughly tripled its revenue. Alex, from what I hear through mutual contacts, took a regular job at another company. We don't talk. Sometimes people from our old circle tell me he tells a slightly different version of the story, something like, "We just didn't see eye to eye, business partners go their separate ways." It doesn't bother me. I know the truth, I have all the documentation, and if any future business partner of his ever wants the real story, I have more than enough proof to tell it. If there's a takeaway from this story, it's this: real revenge rarely looks like what we picture in movies. It doesn't need shouting, broken windows, or dramatic confrontations. Real revenge is patience, method, and using the system, legal, financial, reputational, against someone who thought they could screw you over and walk away clean. 3 years of waiting was worth every bit of it. Every dollar Alex paid back, every document that forced him to admit what he did, every moment I watched his confidence in his own untouchability crumble, none of that came from a flash of rage. It came from a cold, deliberate plan. And yeah, the business we built together is now entirely mine. And it's thriving. If you enjoyed this story, hit like and subscribe. I share real stories about betrayal, revenge, and justice that sometimes takes years to arrive.